So this is the prairie scene motif. So I've mixed up a couple of colors out of the woodland set, and you can do the same thing from tropicals or classic, just making kind of a huntery type green, a little sand color that you might have to make out of using a yellow or yellow and brown mix in your kit, and then some blue for the sky. I'm going to take my small brush and I'm going to come in here and just kind of tap in, depositing some of this paint here. And actually maybe I'll do the lighter color first, and then I can go back in and put in some darker. Make enough so that you can get all the way across here. Okay, now so we'll come along here, and now I'm going to make this green a little bit darker. You've got your little strip of paper that I gave you to just kind of test your colors, because that's really dark, but if you make it less pigmented, it's going to turn a little lighter. So I'm going to come in here on those dark just to kind of vary the tone so that it's got multiple layers. And give it that kind of texture. Probably put a little bit of detail in there. And I'll come along here and just put a little bit of that dark right along the edge, just barely tapping in a little of that pigment, and then filling in some of those white spaces like that. So now we've got the basics of our edge there, and I'm going to now come in here, and I've got this sandy green color. Let's see how that looks when I lay it down. That's a little bit too green for me, so I'm going to put a lot of water in here, and let me spread this around a little bit. And now I'm lifting up my brush and leaving some white of the paper in here. I'm going to come in and just dabble in some of this. I mixed a little green into that sand ridge earlier, and I do want to come across here and do the exact same thing on this side. So if I run out of paint that I mixed, it will look similar across this way. I want to have enough to kind of get in a couple of these areas. In between these grasses, we'll come in and put the definition in a little bit. Like so. And I want to get along that line, take away that white there. And over here, I'll dab in a little bit of that green sandy color as well. Getting those prairie grasses going. And then I have this pathway. It's kind of a sandy pathway all the way up to this little prairie cottage. And so it's showing where it's drying, nice little deposits here. Get rid of that harsh line there and kind of deposit some things in that area. So I'll let that dry a little bit, and I'm going to work on the roof of my house. So kind of using like a blue-gray here, trying that out. You're welcome to design your house however you want. It's teeny bitty tiny. Drew this little cottage for a thank you note. Originally painted it this size, or drew it and then painted it this size for like a card. And now I'm going to go in here and get this redwood to sort of pull in some orangey looking color into this stonework here. I'll probably darken that up in a little bit, and it's kind of like brick, I guess, over here. And I'm going to add some bare color to that brown. I have to use the very tip of my brush with very little water in it to not get it everywhere. And I'll just put a little bit of that into this chimney, and I'll probably clean that up a little bit. And so now we want some kind of a gray here to do. Well, actually, I'll put this sandy color in the background of my house. Oops. Got a lot of pigment, so I'm going to really move that around. My original, you can kind of barely see the background of the house, but it doesn't matter. You can make it whatever color you want. And I'm going to make sure to get a little bit behind these flowers, and I'll let those dry, the house dries, before I go and do the flowers for that. And actually let that dry before I put those stones into there as well. So now I can come down here while I'm waiting for that to dry and start working on these grasses. So I'm going to just use this motion here where the smallest tip is at the top here, going down, meaning that the line is going to be more narrow at the top where the small hairs of the brush are. It might be a little fatter at the bottom because that's where my hand is dropping. Do you see what I just did with that grass? Because I want it to look like a blade. And I think because it's kind of sitting there by itself a little tall, I'll go in and kind of improvise, which you're more than welcome to do. I'm running out of my color again. And I'm going to pop in a little bit of this rusty brown kind of along the base of that grass. And you could just do like a regular brown if you wanted to not make it like orangey. And this is just a base layer. I'm just kind of getting in here with these browns. I have the same technique I used in the coastal marsh motif, where I have those marsh grasses. That has a video, and you can watch that for additional tips that will work for this motif. Okay, I think I need a little more of this background in here. I'm kind of blending that a little bit. And I'll kind of get along the bottom of these grasses while I've got this paint out. And then I'll still attempt to do the grasses here, but now that I've put water all over that, it won't be as bold of a line because it'll blend like that. So we'll come back to it a little bit later. It's the good first round already. It's coming together. You can see the depth here. And then we will come in and do those stones, which I have this gray stone here, or whatever kind of color you have that's sort of a neutral that may be a little darker than your house or a little lighter than your house, depending on the color you did. Obviously, I can't get in there and get each little one like my original was bigger, and I could do that. And I'm going to do gray for this little roof here so we can see it better. And I think I'm going to come along the rooftop and just kind of put a line there. Going to get this kind of gray-black color and go along this roof line here. As I always say, you want to practice doing little fine lines because, whoop, my hand got shaky there. And that's okay because this is kind of whimsical anyway. I think that'll be fine. Take white of the paper towel, stamp that away there. I'm going to add a little more blue on that roof. Okay, now we'll come back down here to these greens. Now this should be pretty dry. Gonna have to make some new. That's super dark. Well, it's the foreground, so it's okay if it's a little darker as long as I've got several blades of grass in that tone throughout. You just don't want one green on one side and a different green on the other side. It will not look good. Well, it's nice because you can see this up close. When I taught this in a class, I'm doing it from an easel. It's very difficult to see some of these fine lines, so you get the benefit of seeing that right up close. And I'm going to come in here and kind of layer up that path a little bit more. It's a road that has been around for a little while. Okay, so that's pretty good on, well, I need to use a lighter green for this. Kind of get around that. I don't want to fix these up too much because I'm about to do my sky. I don't want it to bleed. And I'm going to take my medium brush. You can use your smaller brush if you need to. But on this one, I took out the clouds, it looks like. So I have this like kind of look to mine where I've got these clouds drawn in here. So I'm not exactly sure why they didn't end up in my drawing. I know that one of the girls who took my class, it reminded her of where she lived in, thank you, Ukraine. And she thought they were mountains, so she painted them as mountains, and it looked super cool. But I've got my line to do clouds here. So you would go like this with some blue. And I have some, because the reference of the sky that I did, which was totally different than the house that I did, kind of came across like this, and I just thought they looked fantastic. So I'm going to take this medium brush and now kind of pull away that pigment. That didn't have a lot of water on the brush, so it's a little different. And it's almost acting like a watercolor pencil here, actually. So I am going to do the whole rest of the sky. So I'll just go ahead and grab those lines and sort of come back in here and add some of that blue. And I had some kind of gray, actually. It's probably why it looked like a mountain in my sky. clouds are really funny and interesting. So, got this blue here. Kind of like that a little better. And if you get like a class bundle, like this one was a class, then I have all these little parts we practice first. And that's so helpful to people. So if you want that, you can look at how I did this and just kind of practice ahead of doing your design. And I'm going to go back in here. Wow, I got to add some dark green. Oh, we need to do our flowers. Okay, so get my little brush, and we're going to come in here with a really dark green. And I'm going to do the stems here. You really can't see the flowers too well this small. So I will come in and I'm using that foxberry and just kind of guessing where some flowers might be. I kind of dotted in some that are extra, and I kind of like that because it's got more pop to it. You can add a little shadow now underneath the windowsill, for instance. Put some extra shadow around your roof line. It will give it more dimension. And maybe put a little bit of shadow just watered down version at the horizon line here. And kind of put that in between here just to get rid of some of that white space. And then you can come in with a clear brush and kind of go across this to sort of tone down the white of the paper there.